Hello everyone, a little while ago I did a video talking about shows that I would love to see come to Blu-ray, shows that are already readily available, released, that I would just like to see get a new collection, a remaster, or something of that form. Now I'd like to talk about a handful of shows that I would just like to see come out. Shows that I would love to see make their way to DVD. Shows that still need to come out on DVD. There are so many, there are countless, forgetting movies, oh my gosh, the number of things that are languishing on VHS or Laserdisc or never released on anything, but there are a lot of TV shows that aren't released at all. And if they are, it's maybe in a small collection somewhere or just a season. So the shows that I would like to see come out, and a lot of streaming stuff that's just gone. I'd love to hear below, what are some shows that you are still waiting to see finally get their day, to finally get released? And DVD I mentioned in particular because that's the format that's most likely going to be in. Especially with TV shows, DVD is still like the dominant format really for releases for TV. Start off with a few things in the current streaming era before getting into some of the classic stuff that I desperately want to see get released. A few ongoing shows. We have The Orville is a big one because the first two seasons are on DVD. Fox, which now the Fox television rights are through Disney, they've pretty much stopped releasing things on DVD, and even a few shows that are continuing to be available, they're just print on demand discs through Amazon or different sites, and a lot of them just nothing. But The Orville, it's extra frustrating because that third season is by far the best, really took things up a notch and really honed into its roots as a love letter to Star Trek while truly being a great sci-fi show in its own unique way. And the first two seasons, they're available on DVD. Third season, nothing. And there's the possibility of a fourth season coming out, but first I'd just like to see the third season get released. And it's frustrating for a show that is been partially released and then you can't get the rest of it. Another good example is the Netflix Lost in Space show. I'm a big fan of the 60s Lost in Space, one of my favorites from that era, and this is a very different interpretation, but I genuinely enjoyed the newer Lost in Space as well. And that's another one where the first season was released on DVD and Blu-ray, but the rest of the show hasn't been. And to me, that's almost more frustrating than a show that's never been released at all, is one that started and then stopped. Another modern show would be 3%. 3% was a hugely popular, pretty early success for Netflix and was big internationally. It's one of my wife's favorite TV shows ever, and I found it to be very enjoyable. It's a great show. And that goes into the category of one of those that surprises me it has not been a release, particularly because while Netflix has definitely been far from perfect in releasing stuff, there's a lot that has not been released at all from them, or they started and stopped, but they've been better than most, I would say, at least releasing some things from their line of originals. And that is one that I'm surprised has not happened, and I really hope does, but as more time passes, I feel like less and less likely that one's going to happen. And the last modern show, a lot of modern TV, I don't get heavily involved in a lot of modern shows. A lot of them just don't click with me, or they're fun to watch once and I don't really care after that. But one that I really enjoy, that's been a big surprise for me, something I didn't think I'd like as much as I do, is Only Murders in the Building. And this one I really assumed was going to be released given the high profile of the cast, how incredibly popular it is, and then when shows like Wednesday started coming out, I'm like, well, it's only a matter of time before Only Murders in the Building. And now the current, fourth season is almost done. They've already been renewed for another season, and we still have none of it. The only way to get it would be to get one of those bootleg Blu-ray sets that are from China that I see for sale all the time on eBay. It's not available on DVD, and that one, to me, I really want to see. And it's surprising, more surprising than some other stuff, that it hasn't come out. So that one's pretty frustrating. Now the stuff that is more from my childhood that I'd like to see, that to me is, even if none of these modern stuff come out, I'd love to see those, and it's frustrating they haven't, but this stuff, so much more. Starting with Nickelodeon. I was a kid born towards the end of the 80s, and I was a Nick kid. Growing up with 90s Nickelodeon and Snick, and that was my channel growing up. You know, Nick at Night is how I got into a lot of the classic TV shows that I love that are amongst my favorite shows of all time. You know, Nick was such an important thing for me as a kid, and so much of that era is gone. It's just not released on physical media at all, or maybe it's one or two VHS tapes of those orange Nick VHS tapes, and that's about it. There are a lot of classic Nick shows that are just kind of silly kid shows, but they're such a window in time and they have such a personal importance to me that I would love to have them. Stuff like Clarissa Explains It All. Only the first season was ever released on DVD. There's only one DVD set with a couple of examples of a lot of the Nickelodeon game shows. I'd love to see sets of Legends of the Hidden Temple and Nick Arcade, Guts, all that stuff. Like, why is none of that that's still so popular too with that age demographic? I would kill to have an official release of some of that stuff. Salute Your Shorts. I mean, you'd have to, again, that's one of those things you'd have to get like a bootleg of. It's just all that stuff from that era, that 90s Nick stuff, I would just kill to have. That was such an important part of a solid decade of my life that it's sad that a lot of it is just not had an official release and is just sort of, as time moves on, being more and more forgotten. But the number one show by far, if we got none of the shows I talked about so far and we could get this, I'd say fine, that's a great trade for me. Ready or Not, the 90s coming of age drama with Laura Bertram and Lonnie Billard out of Canada. That, I adore that show. When I was a kid, that was my go-to coming of age teen show during the 90s. I absolutely loved that. My first big crush was Laura Bertram's character Amanda on that show. I mean, I adored that show. And it was a big hit. It was an award-winning, very successful show in Canada. It was successful internationally, and never been released on anything. No DVDs, not even like a random VHS release, nothing. It's so surprising that that one has just been lost to time. I mean, you can find episodes on some different sites, and I have from multiple different sources because the quality varies. Stuff downloaded on an external hard drive in my computer and things, but to get an official release of that, like on some pressed DVDs, like just to get a box set of that would be amazing. That would be by far the number one show that has not been released at all that I would love to see get a release on physical media. So those are the TV shows that have not been released in full on any format that I would love to see come out, and to see a complete series box set, or at least something more than what we've seen in the past released on DVD. And what are the shows that you keep waiting and hoping to see released someday?